Welcome back to the channel, guys. Hope everyone's 2022 is going okay. I'm doing something a little different today from my normal videos and want to discuss my favorite games from the pandemic. I had originally wanted this to be a small end of the year video, but as I went over in my Bully retrospective, getting sick really derailed my plans. So I figured what better way to kick off the new year than to discuss what I liked about the old one. Now this isn't really a traditional my top 10 games type of video, more or less just me reminiscing about the games that made being stuck indoors the last 2 years a lot more bearable. A few of these weren't actually released in the last 2 years, and the list of games themselves aren't really in any particular order, though the last few in the video are what I consider the best, and the ones I spent the most time with. So let's go ahead and dive in. To kick off the list, it's the game that took the world by storm at the beginning of the lockdowns, Animal Crossing: New Horizons. I love Animal Crossing. I've been a fan ever since I saw the first game at Blockbuster. Something about it just made me want to rent and play it, and I found a charming little town building game. I was new to the genre and never played games like The Sims or Harvest Moon before. But something about moving to a new town and making friends with animal villagers really grabbed me. Since then, I've always tried my best to play the new releases on launch. Naturally, after years of waiting since New Leaf's release, I was excited when I got my hands on New Horizon. The idea of starting your island from scratch and slowly building it up was one I was really into, as it brought a lot of customization options compared to the old games. Add in the new crafting mechanic, and I was hooked. But I think what really made it so fun was just being able to play with my friends. Yeah, I know it's technically not a new feature to the series, but none of my IRL friends ever played the series till this one. So getting together, exploring each other's towns, trading items, etc. really made it feel like we were all still hanging out, and the world wasn't ending. Admittedly, there's definitely a lot this game could have done more to push the series, and like most Animal Crossing games, I stopped playing after a few months. But I still loved my time with it, and it really makes me want to take a full look at the series in a video someday. The first release of Persona 5 was a bit of a slow burn for me. I don't know if I wasn't in the right mindset for it, or if I just didn't have the time, but it took me a few months to get into it, unlike Persona 4. But once it had its hooks in me, I never wanted to let go. I love the stylish presentation, the amazing characters, the solid turn-based combat, and most of all, the incredible music. So naturally, when they announced to be getting an updated re-release in the form of Royal, I was pumped. Despite not having played the original for some time before this release, it felt like I never left. I easily jumped back into the antics of the Phantom Thieves and was excited to see where it would take the story with the new character Kasumi. While the story itself didn't change as much as I was expecting, I do like how they shaked up some of the boss fights, added new areas to visit with your social links, and the changes to mementos. Honestly, I couldn't put it down when it was first released, and I'm still playing it. Yeah, despite having put 100 hours into it now, and being almost 2 years since release, I still haven't actually finished it. It's not that I got bored of the game or anything, it's more like I didn't finish it in time, as one of the biggest releases of the year was right around the corner. Holy shit, was the hype huge for Final Fantasy VII Remake. If I'm being upfront, FF7 isn't my favorite Final Fantasy game. It was a game I had completely overlooked when I had a PlayStation growing up, and it wasn't until a decade later that I actually played it and understood what the fuss was about. But by that time, I had several RPGs and Final Fantasy games under my belt, and while I definitely enjoyed my time with it, I didn't get the best game of all time vibes like others. That said, over time, I slowly grew to love the game and its characters, mostly after seeing them in high def in the Advent Children movie, and especially after playing the masterpiece that is Crisis Core. So, like a lot of fans, I was ready and excited to play the remake, and I was not disappointed. The action combat was more refined and felt way more fluid compared to Final Fantasy XV. A really nice hybrid of regular RPG and hack and slash gameplay. The graphics were absolutely gorgeous. The environments have insane amounts of detail, and I love the updated looks of the main characters. Best waifu Aerith especially. Side characters like Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie felt way more fleshed out, and much more important to the story, as opposed to the disposable red shirts from the original game. The music is incredible as well, with some solid remixes of the classic themes, especially the regular fight theme. And the recently released Intergrade DLC did a solid job introducing Yuffie and reeling me back into the game. With it out now on PS5, I'm eager to replay the whole thing on hard mode. I get that not everyone is a big fan of the changes to the story, especially the ending of the game, but to avoid spoilers, all I'll say is that I don't really have any problems with it. I like that it wasn't a complete one-to-one of the original, and I'm really excited to see what direction they take with the story. Hopefully we won't have to wait another 5 years to see where it goes. After the surprise announcement and release of Resident Evil 2 Remake, I was excited for the release of the remake of RE3. Jill is my second favorite RE protagonist after Leon, and it was exciting to play as her again after so many years, even if it was just a remake. And man, was the reception mixed on this one. Like FF7, I haven't played RE3 until some years after I played 4, so I didn't have the same love and attachment to it like other fans. That said, even without the nostalgia, something definitely felt off about the game, especially in comparison to RE2 Remake. While the combat was still fun, the graphics were solid, and I really liked Jill's new design, skorts aside, it felt too streamlined. It lost the methodical thinking and dread that the previous game had, and felt too actiony, like playing RE5 again. I know that the original RE3 had a lot more action compared to 2, but it was still mostly survival horror, and Nemesis did still feel like an intimidating threat, but I think everyone's expectation was that he'd play like an even tougher Mr. X, and not just be used like a recurring boss. But I still had fun. Killing zombies and mutations is still a blast. The back and forth with Jill and Carlos is just hilarious, and despite how short it is, I've replayed it dozens of times. Both remake games became that cool-down game for me. Something I'd play on a bored and exhausted night to just speedrun and have fun. So while I think the game really could have used a lot more, specifically a whole route dedicated to Carlos, like we had Leon and Claire in the previous game, and maybe a couple extra hours of gameplay to justify the full price tag, I still consider it a good game. Not the best, but certainly not the worst like others treat it.
Last night was amazing. If you ever cheat on me, I'll be angry.
You still doing the two-time and tango?
Don't say it like that. It wasn't on purpose.
Last night was really something, huh?
It's not what you think.
Man, did I sleep on this game. Get it? Because it's about dreaming and nightmares. Catherine is that game I just didn't know anything about before I first played it last year. Really, all I was ever familiar with was the tons of fan art and cosplay of the title character. But after playing Persona 5 and noticing the similarities between the series, only just then realizing Catherine was also made by Atlas, I said screw it, let's give it a shot. I don't know what I was expecting, but it sure wasn't a puzzle game with a story about a guy who cheated on his girlfriend. You play as Vincent, who's struggling with committing to his longtime girlfriend, Catherine with a K, and just doing something with his life. After some binge drinking with friends, he ends up in bed with the titular Catherine, with a C. Hijinks ensue. I really like this story, how the different choices you make as Vincent can lead to multiple endings. But the star for me is the gameplay. At first, I went in assuming these block puzzles would just be superficial, but it's actually really fun. Slowly climbing your way up, collecting money along the way, using items to fix any screw-ups. And the boss battles at the end made most chapters feel really intense. Something that really caught me off guard for a puzzle game. The cast of characters are fun, the mystery surrounding Catherine with a C and young men dying is really intriguing. And the twists are pretty good, especially when you're choosing a specific route for Vincent. Sorry if this one is a bit brief, but honestly I think I want to do a longer video on Catherine somewhere down the line. Especially since I still have a few endings to unlock. The Atelier series is one of those gaming series I consider on-the-shelf games. What I mean is, I've always known of their existence and have seen them for sale at GameStop, but that's it. Outside the box art, I didn't really know much about the games at all. Well, that changed with Atelier Ryza. Why? Well, no specific reason. The game stars Ryza, just an ordinary girl living on a small town on an isolated island. After an alchemist visits her town, she thinks she's found a purpose in her life, and a way to spice up her boring, simple life by becoming an alchemist. And that's about it. There is a mystery regarding an ancient civilization and some monsters, but it doesn't have the same save-the-world feel like a lot of JRPGs. The focus is purely on its alchemy system, gathering resources to build items, weapons, and armor, and then constantly improving them. It's a really addictive loop, and I've spent hours of gameplay just improving my items and crafting without even bothering to go into a fight. It has a really relaxing atmosphere to it, the calm music in and out of battle really adding to it. I've been playing its sequel as well, and it retains the same atmosphere while expanding on the world and its lore. From what I'm told, Ryza is actually one of the easier games in the series, as older games had a calendar system in place that made you keep an eye on what you were doing each day. While I do like the chill environment of Ryza, I do like the idea of managing my time like in games like Dead Rising or Persona 4. So I'm eager to go back and play some of the older games, especially since they've been getting ports to Switch. So, if you're in a mood for a more easygoing and relaxing RPG, with a cute protagonist and a simple story, I say give Atelier Ryza and its sequel a look. This one's another game I'm hoping to make a video on this year. My personal game of the year for 2020, Ghost of Tsushima is probably the best open world game I've played since Breath of the Wild. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai on the island of Tsushima, trying to fight back against the Mongol invasion. As someone who is a huge fan of Sekiro, I really dig the sword combat in this game, even if it's not as punishing. Being able to challenge enemies to duels, take out multiple Mongols at once, or just playing it stealthily keeps every encounter from being the same. The world has this rich look to it, with different environments and seasons to it. Distinct enough where I could easily tell where I was on the map just by checking out my surroundings. Jin's story does feel a bit weak, but I think it's propped up with some really good side characters, and a compelling villain in Khotun Khan. Also, its open world doesn't feel like a chore to explore, one of my bigger gripes with open worlds in general. Too many devs make their worlds too big with nothing to do, or following the Far Cry model of just taking over outposts. Here, there's plenty of shrines to visit, haikus to write, weapons to collect, and small side quests to complete and help the people of Tsushima. It's a game that really respects the player's time. You can loot enemies nice and fast, instead of an overly long animation like in Red Dead 2. When in dialogue or following an NPC in a mission, you can speed up Jin and the other characters will speed up as well. For something so simple, it's honestly mind-blowing for someone who's been used to NPC conversations, just slowing games down to a crawl. And the game got even better when it added Legends as a free multiplayer mode, letting me team up with my friends to fight demons in a sort of horde mode, and then gave me even more to do with the upgrade and paid DLC with the Isle of Iki. It's an absolutely amazing game with some awesome features and great characters. And honestly probably would have won Game of the Year if the gaming industry wasn't too busy shilling for The Last of Us 2. Now that I have the PS5 version, like FF7 Remake, I'm eager to go back and do a new playthrough from the beginning.
Good morning, Night City! Yesterday's body count lottery rounded out to a solid and sturdy 30. 10 out of Haywood, thanks to unabated gang wars. One officer down, so I guess you're all screwed, cause the NCPD will not let that go.
So Cyberpunk was kind of a rough launch, eh? So I'm in a bit of a weird spot when it comes to this game. First is that I didn't really have a lot of hype behind it. It wasn't that it looked bad or anything, more so the game just wasn't on my radar. I was pretty new to CD Projekt Red and their games in general, and was barely only a few hours into The Witcher 3 when I started watching trailers for Cyberpunk. On a side note, I still need to finish The Witcher 3. The second reason is that despite its many problems when it launched, I was one of the lucky few who barely experienced any issues. Granted, I've been playing it on PC where it ran much better in the first place, but outside of some glitches and having to restart the game when a quest broke, I didn't really encounter any problems that ruined the experience for me. Night City is this absolutely gorgeous and fleshed out cyberpunk world. Its story about V trying to rise up from the bottom of the hierarchy and make something of themselves is intriguing, and gets even better after stumbling into the conspiracy revolving Arasaka, and ending up sharing headspace with Keanu Reeves, aka Johnny Silverhand. I enjoyed the gameplay quite a bit, but do agree with a lot of others that the RPG elements are very undercooked, and things like hacking don't feel as useful as it could have been. The shooting is fine. I'm not someone who has particularly high standards when it comes to FPSs, but there was enough customization and weapon variety where I didn't just have to use the same guns over and over, though the difficulty of firefights seemed to be all over the place, as I could down one group of thugs like nothing, walk over a few blocks, and then get annihilated by guys barely some levels above them. But the story and characters are what really sold me on this game, and kept me playing despite the negative press and backlash it got. V, Jackie, Johnny, Judy, and more are these solid characters with complex motives and backstories. Your interactions with them and how they can end up changing the ending really made you pay attention to their actions and what they had to say. It's why I'm so desperate for some story DLC, or shit, just some new game plus. I know CDPR is still working on fixing the game, and it looks like for the most part it's now functional and playable on consoles. But hopefully this year we get some DLC for the game, and it can really turn around its negative reputation. No Man's Sky pulled it off, and they were a smaller studio, so fingers crossed CDPR can do the same. Man, this game is addicting. Hades is a roguelike action game revolving around Zagreus, the son of Hades and his desperation to escape Hades, the place and his father. Now, roguelikes aren't really my bag. The idea of having to start over from the beginning again after dying isn't the most appealing thing for me. But all the constant talk around it, the gameplay videos, and the awards it was winning, I said fuck it, let's give it a shot. And man, I'm glad I did. You'll start your run by choosing a weapon, being able to practice combos before trying to ascend out of Hades. On the way, you'll clear rooms of monsters and receive various rewards from clearing out the areas. There are boons that are gifts from the Olympian gods who will give Zagreus new abilities and buffs to assist in clearing a room. Health upgrades to survive longer, money to purchase items from a merchant, upgrades for the weapons he's using to deal more damage, or better combos, and much, much more. Each failed run will have Zagreus start over, but he'll keep certain upgrades and will unlock more and more weapons as time goes on. But it's not all about his escape attempts. Zagreus can talk to the various denizens of Hades' court to receive their advice and grow his relationship with them. This includes his advisor and mentor Achilles, his foster mother Nyx, his ex-girlfriend Megara, and even his dear old dad Hades. Each escape attempt should run roughly about 40 minutes, but the game's difficulty, and because of how it encourages you to beat it multiple times, really helps extend the length without feeling overly padded. As of the time of this writing, I've beaten it about 4 times now. I'm eager to go back and flesh out the remaining questions around Zagreus and his mother. Though I may end up double dipping and buying it on the Switch, as while I do love it on PC, this just feels like a perfect portable game. Oh my god, this game has become my life as of late. So I actually started Final Fantasy XIV a few years back around 2018. The complete edition with the base game and the first 2 expansions was on sale for PS4. So I said screw it, why not? And my experience with it was really positive. The graphics were a huge step up in comparison to the last MMO I played, World of Warcraft. The gameplay was similar but worked pretty well on a controller. I liked all the options I had for races and jobs. The job system being one of my favorite things from Final Fantasy in general. But what I liked the most was just how welcoming the game felt. Other players were really friendly, helpful, and super patient when we had to run duties. Which really caught me off guard, as I'm used to the toxic cesspool of players like in Call of Duty or, again, in WoW. But then I just kind of stopped playing. I wasn't bored of it. I think once again my backlog overwhelmed me and I didn't have the time for it. I also didn't have the best internet at the time, so it was a chore to stay connected online for long. Fast forward to this summer, I'm working from home now, and I'm still not really going out that often, even with the lockdowns being over. So I decided to jump back in. And it feels like I never left. My Dragoon still plays the same as I remember, maybe a little easier now as I had a better understanding of my rotation. The world looked even better now that I was playing it on PC, more so once I finished Realm Reborn, and got to visit other locales in the expansion. The player base felt even friendlier too. I get that the game really blew up this year, and there's a huge influx of newbies to it, but I'm glad that didn't make the veteran players salty and toxic. Hell, they seemed even more patient as we'd wipe more on duties, and it didn't feel like it was the end of the world. Just get back up and try again. Even the way the devs reply to user complaints is a breath of fresh air. From public apologies for overloaded servers, to free game time, to stopping the sale of the damn game until they can get more servers. Like wow, the complete opposite of a company like Activision Blizzard, who would probably just make excuses and blame the player base. At the time of this recording, I've finished Heaven's Ward and I'm about halfway through Stormblood. Despite how much I've had fun as my Dragoon, I'm thinking about trying a new class when I hit level 70. So I'm up for any suggestions, though I'll probably stick to DPS as I'm not a good tank or a healer. I'm currently playing on the Midgarsamar server, I think that's how you say it, so if by chance you play the game and you're currently on there, feel free to say hello. My character's name is Valum Bane. Don't know why, think I just randomly chose it, but I'm probably going to reroll his name, race, and gender when I choose a new class. So I'll let you guys know what I'd go with if I do another video on Final Fantasy XIV. At the rate I'm playing, I'm hoping to get to Endwalker by February, but I'm not really in a huge rush. And I'm happy to take my time and enjoy a game that others have been playing for years now. I'm excited to see what Square Enix does next with the current story after Endwalker. Just please, please keep that NFT garbage out of the game. Don't ruin a good thing. This game changed my life. And another entry in the heard of this game but never played it category is Yakuza 0, and by extension the entire Yakuza series. Honestly, I have no idea why it's taken me so long to get into this series. It feels perfectly designed for a weeb like me. A badass main character, over-the-top fights, crazy side characters, and an insane storyline with some outrageous twists. With so many games released by the time I started playing, I decided the best place was to start at the beginning. Well, sort of. Yakuza 0 is a prequel, starring the series' long-running protagonist, Kazuma Kiryu. He's framed for a murder he didn't commit, and has to fight to prove his innocence, meanwhile being caught up in a plot concerning the purchase of a small lot of land. But along with Kiryu, you'll be playing as his rival and recurring character, Majima Goro. Majima has fallen out of favor with his Yakuza clan, and is currently running a cabaret bar in hopes of making enough money to buy himself back in the clan's good graces. But soon he gets wrapped up in the Yakuza's war for the empty lot, and the mystery surrounding the blind girl known as Makoto. The game is set in the 80s, during Japan's economic boom, with tons of wealthy people lining up the streets and just throwing cash around everywhere. The game's a beat-em-up, having you beat the literal cash out of opponents, using both Kiryu's and Majima's individual fighting styles. It feels like a more condensed and slightly less violent version of GTA, which I really like. Kamurocho looks gorgeous, all the neon lights and storefronts really capturing the glitz of the 80s. And there's so much to do in it. Karaoke, batting cages, running a cabaret club, playing arcade games, underground fighting tournaments, and so much more. I love all the characters, especially the feud with Kiryu and his former lieutenant in the Dojima family, Kuze. Their confrontations and the over-the-top fights are some of the best parts of the entire game. I could talk about this game for hours, and hopefully will somewhere down the line in my YouTube career. After beating this game, I wanted more from the Yakuza series, and immediately jumped into the next game. As of the time of this video, I've beaten 0, Kiwami 1 and 2, and started playing Yakuza 7. I'm planning to get through the rest of the main series this year, and even try out its spin-off series, Judgment. This series just caught me at the best time, made what was a boring and miserable time during the pandemic much more fun and enjoyable. I'm eager to continue the series and see where Kiryu's journey eventually takes him. Please, just no spoilers in the comments. And those were my top pandemic games. Thank you for watching. I did play a lot more games during this time that I enjoyed, but I didn't have as much to say. I played new Pokemon Snap and Brilliant Diamond. Snap was pretty good and relaxing, and I thought the remake was okay, if just a little too faithful to the original. I'm more excited for Legends Arceus if I'm being honest. I may even do a review on it. Tales of Arise has been a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of the Tales series and haven't really been keeping up with releases for a while. But I like what this new entry is doing and really dig characters in the setting. The new Ratchet & Clank was gorgeous, lots of fun, and Rivet was a nice addition. I'm not a furry, I swear. It was great to finally play No More Heroes 3, though I really hate its ugly open world. The Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake was incredible, and I'm glad they kept Goldfinger in there. Just bummed to hear what happened to Vicarious Visions. But with everything going at Activision Blizzard, who knows, maybe they can break free and bring us a remake of Tony Hawk Underground. Metroid Dread was absolutely amazing. I've played it 3 times now, and it's my 2021 Game of the Year for sure. And then there are smaller indies like Loop Hero and Dead Estate that are tons of fun too. And this month I've actually started on Inscription, which is pretty awesome honestly. I've started recording for my next video, and since this one will be on the smaller end, I'm hoping to get it out a week after this video debuts. Assuming nothing goes wrong. Again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like. Comment down below and tell me what you've been playing the last 2 years. Got any recommendations? And if you're new to my channel, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.